Welcome to episode 112 of the Eat for Endurance podcast, where we explore the connection between nutrition, performance, and health for busy, active people. My name is Claire Shorenstein, and I'm a board-certified sports dietitian and endurance athlete with over 10 years of experience working with teenage and adult athletes of all abilities. I started this podcast to provide evidence-based guidance, inspiring athlete stories, and practical tips on a wide variety of nutrition topics so that you can fuel better, crush your endurance goals, and thrive as a human being. Today, I have a very exciting athlete nutrition profile for you featuring the one and only Tara Dower. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know who Tara is, she's a thru-hiker and professional ultrarunner with a number of major wins, podiums, and fastest known times, aka FKTs, under her belt. Most notably, she set the overall FKT of the Appalachian Trail this past September, completing the 2,190-mile distance in just over 40 days and 18 hours and beating the previous speed record by 13 hours. And she won a golden ticket to the Western States 100 with a second place finish at the Black Canyon 100K just a week and a half ago. I am so incredibly stoked that she agreed to spend some time with me to share her nutrition story, including how her fueling has evolved in the last few years to support her recent incredible athletic accomplishments. That's enough intro for me because I'm sure you're all eager to hear from Tara, so let's dive in. Tara, welcome to the Eat for Endurance podcast. I'm so stoked to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, I have a great view of the I'm in Durango now, but I'm looking over at Smelter right now, and it's a bluebird day. So after we finish up this podcast, I'm looking forward to going on a run. And though the trails are still pretty icy and snowy, I can run on the river trail, which is nice.
Yeah, you got some lights going on in your background. It's looking very festive in there.
Well, yeah. So the one that's just going around my face, this is like it's a sun catcher, but it's on it's on a solar. It has a little solar panel, so it's like it's rotating the crystal. So you're getting that's probably why you're seeing all these little rainbows.
I was like, do you have a disco ball? What's happening? I love it. That's great.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Very, very cool. So first off, huge congrats on Black Canyon 100K. Like that was not even 2 weeks ago. How's your body recovering from that effort?
Yeah, it's actually good right now, but the first week after, my hamstrings were pretty tight and I was exhausted, of course. But right now I honestly feel fine and just like easing into it. So me and my coach have like a range that I'm going for each day. And, it's like separated by 2 miles. So I could do like 8 today, depending on how I feel, or like 10. So I like this point in training where you're kind of just like determining how you feel and getting out there and doing what you can. Yeah, there's not a lot of like pressure at this point, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to be circling back to recovery and kind of all of the strategies you use, because I feel like you're a little bit of a unicorn in like all the things that you've stacked one after another. And I immediately kept thinking back to Mike Wardian and like how he's like constantly stacking things. But yeah, so we'll dig back in that a little bit. But I like to start these episodes hitting rewind and going back to your nutrition roots. So kind of sharing a little bit about growing up, what memories you have surrounding food and meal times specifically.
Yeah, that's a great question. When, growing up, something I want to bring into a future family of my own is like eating together at the dinner table. No matter what, we always had dinner together. And it was me, my brother, my parents. And my brother was just he was very social and always like out of the house, especially when he was a teenager, either sports or he was always hanging out with friends. But no matter what, he would always come home for dinner time. And that was a special time. But looking back at like the nutrition side of it, my parents and my brother loved meat, like steaks and like burgers and all that stuff. And I just remember not like, it sounds so funny saying like, oh, I didn't like steaks, but I didn't really like meat, especially red meat. And I remember they would just be like, we bought this food, you got to eat the food. And I was like, no, I would always eat like the vegetables and stuff. So I kind of find myself, even today, leaning more towards like vegetables, like pasta, grains, and red meat. If I'm at a restaurant and they serve like really good, good red meat, I'll get it there, but I'm never buying red meat for myself. I am doing a lot of chicken, but yeah, like food, like how the feelings behind like that food time, it was always kind of a struggle for my parents to get me to eat a lot. And it's not like I had like any thoughts of like, oh, this celebrity looks like this. I didn't have like any sort of like motivations on that front. It's just like I just wasn't super into eating, which sounds so weird. I was a big snacker, love snacks, big snacker. I remember just sitting at the table, they'd make me sit there until I ate all of my food. I couldn't get up. And growing up, I mean, once I, on my own and once I went to college and making my own meals, it was a lot of like vegetables, a lot of pastas, and still sort of that way. But I try to get my proteins in now and be more responsible with what I'm eating and not just like what I'm looking forward to eating.
Yeah, it's so funny the number of people. I love asking this question because it's interesting how it colors people's views of food. And sometimes there's no real connection, but you can kind of sometimes like really draw that line between, early in childhood and then later on as they're kind of, what I like to say, nutrition story, how it develops. But yeah, it's the number of people who have said they have to like sit at the table until all their food. I mean, it's such a generational thing, right? Yeah. A lot of people have said that one, and that's always so rough. But so I know that hiking, running, that kind of came later on, and you were doing more like soccer, rugby, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, were you thinking much about nutrition for performance? Like, did you even view food that way, or very much it was not that? Like,
no.
What did that look like as you were athletic and you were competing? What did nutrition look like for you?
When I was living with my parents, when I was in, elementary, middle, high school, performing and doing these sports, there wasn't any consideration into like nutrition for performance at all. There were times where I was running winter track and doing soccer, or going to meets for winter track and then like also doing mostly soccer. And like my parents would be like, you have to eat extra. My mom would like encouraged me to go to like Taco Bell when I got my car and like get extra food before practices and stuff. But it was never a thought of like nutrition as performance. And even when I went to college, I had the dining hall, which was nice for the first 2 years. But after that, I just ate whatever I could afford and whatever was easiest for me to make. It wasn't it. And that's when I played rugby. There was no consideration into like food for performance. I would say like that changed relatively recently, thinking of like foods that I need relatively recently, like in the past 5 years. I remember after the Mountains of Sea Trail, just the struggle I went through on that trail because of nutrition, because I was depleted. It made me really dive into like what foods I need to perform well, especially in these long efforts. So food was always just getting it in, whatever tasted right. Mm-hmm. I was a picky eater when I was a child. I'm not a picky eater anymore. I'm down to eat whatever. I had my friend pick my meal last night at this Himalayan restaurant, and like looking back to where like, when I was a kid, there was no way I would even step foot in a Himalayan restaurant. I would just ask them for like buttered noodles if I was a child. But like, I'm not picky anymore, and I just eat until I'm full, honestly.
Yeah, I'm definitely these are all things I'm like putting pins in, because I'm going to circle back to a lot of these things. But one thing I'm interested right now is, I've heard you speak about your anxiety, and I know it got in the way of your first thru-hike attempt on the AT back in 2017. And I'm wondering you've talked about kind of being picky with your eating, that kind of stuff. I'm wondering if anxiety, did that ever complicate your nutrition at any point, whether it was growing up or when you were, out of college? Just curious about that.
Yeah, no, that never complicated it. I have a relatively healthy relationship with food, and I just really enjoy food now that I'm not a picky eater as a child anymore. I'm just eating whatever.
Yeah, got it. And one thing, just because we're on this topic, other than exercise, how have you been able to, just because anxiety is such this like prevalent thing in so many people, especially this day and age, what are some strategies that you kind of use to cope with your anxiety? Because it seems like now that's something that you've been able to really kind of support yourself better and handle it.
Yeah, it's a great question. I have several techniques, and I remember in 2020, it just came to a head, and it was like, wow, this is 2017, obviously I had that panic attack, but I wasn't doing a whole lot after that. I was doing some things and I made up some techniques in order to like get through my next hikes. But I felt like it got really bad again in 2020, which I haven't talked a lot about. And I actually started going to a therapist, and we worked really hard on, finding those triggers of anxiety and like putting it into context. And something that really helped me was like realizing this isn't forever. Like if I'm anxious about a specific hike or run I'm doing, like there's going to be a time, maybe not in the near future, maybe 40 days from now, maybe 20 minutes from now, it's going to look different. Either you're still on the trail or you're at home in a comfortable environment. Like it's not always going to feel like this. And that has helped me put it into context and look at it as like a moment, and also focus on things that ground me. So I had a lot of physical techniques that grounded me. So on the Mountains of Sea Trail, I took like fistful of gravel or rocks, and I would just like crunch it in my hands and feel it and like just consider how it feels and the coolness of the rocks. And that helped me bring myself back to my body. And then like also focusing on my support system. I've realized like I have a great support system around me, and they are so supportive of my career now as a professional athlete, but they supported me even when I wasn't making any money at all. And they supported me so well. And just focusing on them and their support and like reaching out to people. They know me. They know I have anxiety. I mean, everyone who, has done any amount of research should know that I have anxiety. And that also gives me a lot, having people know that gives me a lot of like ease, knowing I don't have to like be a certain way. I don't need to put on this face. I can just be my authentic self, which sometimes is a little anxious.
Yeah. Well, I love that because I mean, what I'm hearing is, community support, which is huge. And then also that physical thing. It's like being present, which I think a lot of the times is very hard, especially, when you are anxiety, like whether you're thinking ahead or obsessing about the past or whatever it may be, it's like bringing yourself to being present, which that's the beauty of being in nature too, is it is a little bit easier to be present and look around, that, but that physical, like, having the gravel in your hand, that's really great. But some people unfortunately are relying too heavily on exercise and whether sport they're doing. So it is important to have these other strategies. So I love that. So you were doing soccer, rugby. How did you make the leap to through hiking? Or I guess it went through hiking then running. Like how did that all happen?
Well, I started running in middle school and did cross country in high school, and always did like races when I was in college, but nothing like, they're like local 5Ks. So running has always been a part of my life. But through hiking, came into my life around 2012, 2013 when I was in my dorm room, watched a documentary about the Appalachian Trail, and was enthralled, and it just became my focus, my sole focus, and still is pretty much my sole focus even, 12-ish years later. I'm still like very focused on the Appalachian Trail. I love it. The community, the culture, and, nature, obviously. And I can't even look back at photos. I try to look back at photos of my FKT, and it's just like, my heart yearns for that environment, the trail. But going back to that in 2013, I watched that documentary, and I made it a goal after college to through hike the Appalachian Trail. So when I graduated in 2016, I decided to try to through hike in 2017. And like we mentioned, anxiety prevented me from getting past 80 miles, and had to really figure out what was going on there. Went back in 2019 and had a good support system. Anxiety was mostly managed, and went back and through hiked. But in between there, 2019, 2017, I did work a lot on my anxiety. But I also ran a marathon, a half marathon, and then a marathon in there. And I was like, okay, I am very goal oriented, and 2017 didn't work out for my through hike. So I need to jump into another goal. If I don't have a goal on the horizon, I don't even know what life looks like without a goal on the horizon. There might be something deeper to that, but it motivates me to, be the best version of myself, I guess you could say. It sounds a little cliche, but every day I'm working towards a goal. And if I don't have that goal, life seems a little empty. So yeah, it was like simultaneously I was thru hiking and running. And after the thru hike in 2019, I was like, okay, I want to be on trails a lot. And I also like running. And that's when the FKT on the Mountains of Sea Trail kind of popped into my head.
Yeah. One thing that I really wanted to spend time on today, because I don't think you've really, you've obviously touched on nutrition in a lot of, you've done a bajillion podcasts, but you've touched on nutrition a lot. But, I really wanted to get into it. And, we have you have thru hiking, you have setting speed records or FKTs, fastest known times. And then you have racing ultramarathons, like you just did that canyon, right? And those are such different sporting scenarios, almost different sports, right? They have different demands on the body, logistical challenges, et cetera. And thus they require different fueling approaches. And so I'd love for us to spend, this is obviously a big question, so we'll kind of go through it, but, maybe just comparing and contrasting your nutrition for these different situations. So maybe we can start with thru hiking and what that looks like from you and kind of move on. Because imagine it must be so different for you in all these different things. And then how the crew plays into the whole mix and all of that.
Yeah, thru hiking is probably the most different of everything I do because it's about weight. You have to consider like how much weight you're carrying. So you can't carry like tortillas are really heavy, but they're really good, dense, calorically dense. But you don't want to carry a whole packet of tortillas. You can't bring like wet foods because that's so heavy. It's also like back when I was doing more thru hiking than racing, I had way less money to spend. So it was a lot of ramen, things that I could afford. Ramen's super light too. Any thru hikers, they already know this, but ramen's so light and it's calorically dense. It's got the sodium in it. So it was basically like what I could fit in my bear can or my bear bag and what could fuel me the best. And that was the cheapest. So there was really no consideration. It was just like eat. And then I think I did consider like, okay, I need one protein bar a day. And I think that was the only time I really considered like what I need nutritionally.
And were you were picking things up along the way too, because like when you thru hike the AT, that's over like what, 5+ months or something, right? So, so obviously you're stopping along the way, refueling, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So it's like also what can you pick up in these like mountain towns in Appalachia? Sometimes you only have a Dollar General, and then sometimes it's just like a little gas station's market. Like what can you pick up from there? Sometimes we had like Walmart's, which was like incredible and like so many options. But yeah, it's like what do we have access to?
And then so you don't have aid stations, but then you have like people along the trail offering trail magic or whatever they call it. So like, do you have any fun stories to share? Any like really just memorable moments with food or anything that really stands out to you from your thru hiking days?
Yeah, like really anything fresh you don't have a lot of fresh foods on thru hikes. So anything fresh that a trail angel would bring was amazing. I think I remember a couple different trail magics, but one in particular was just like, I just like hung out. I didn't do any of this, but there was one lady who had like every form of cannabis consumption that you could consider. And she had so many different kinds, and my two friends who were with me just got super blazed, and she had fresh food, and so they were just eating so much. It's like, this is great because sometimes you don't really have an appetite when you're hiking. So then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I'm really hungry. I have the munchies, and I don't want to eat this ramen in my bag, but there's this nice fresh salad here that she's brought. Also, like some people would bring beers and just like fruit and vegetables, which was really nice. Those are the ones I remember, just the fresh food. People who, any trail magic is the best trail magic. I'm not picky. Give me a soda. That's awesome. Give me a Hostess cake. Give me fresh salad or fruits and vegetables. I'm going to be happy either way.
In these longer efforts, how are you dealing with the lack of fresh food? Are you taking a multivitamin? Are you doing anything to kind of, because it's not like an ultra or even an FKT where it's like kind of a short-ish period of time. It's a pretty long period of time. Like, are you doing anything to offset that?
The thru hike was like 5.5 months. when I did it in 2019. And yeah, I probably should have taken more consideration into that. But again, there's no consideration on what I actually need to be consuming. And I never felt like bad. I always felt like I was fueled pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Opposed to like the last, New Hampshire and Maine are just really tough states. And I think I was experiencing, maybe some lack of fueling there because I was more tired. I was falling a lot more. But it's also at the end of the thru hike. So that could also be a consideration.
Yeah. I remember hearing somewhere that your mom, am I mistaken that your mom is a thru hiker as well?
Yeah,
and you were talking about how she struggled with fueling or something along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, that's why she stopped. She went about 700 miles on the trail and had to stop because I remember we dropped her off. I did the first 5 days with her through mountain crossing and sent her on her way. I went to go see her when she was at Browns Gap near Hot Springs, North Carolina. And, that period, that's like, what is that, 300-ish miles, somewhere in there, 300 miles. It had to be about a month or so, or I don't remember how long the time was, but I went to go see her and I swear she had lost like 20 pounds. And yeah, it was very dramatic and concerning. And watching her that day, she ate I remember there's a 7-mile section from Max Patch to Lemon Gap, I think it is. And I watched her and she ate one piece of chocolate the entire time. And she's like, yeah, that's my snack.
Oh no.
So I was like feeding her and giving her like all these sodas and stuff. I was like, just eat, drink, do whatever. Like, I'll get you whatever you want. I would bring her sandwiches when I would visit her later on. Like, I visited her after, what were those mountains? Little and Big Giant, I think that's what they're called. And would bring sandwiches and sodas and stuff. But yeah, she had to get off because she just was withering away. And it would affect her mood as well. And she was, hiking on such a deficit like that is
no fun.
No fun and not
healthy.
Good. Yeah, not healthy.
Yeah. Did she start hiking because of you? Or she was already hiking? Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and we hiked as a family. We did geocaching as a family.
Okay.
And that's where I got my love of the outdoors. But through hiking, backpacking started from me, which is kind of cool.
That is so cool. I love that. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to take a really quick break to shout out my virtual private practice, Eat for Endurance. You may think that working with a sports dietitian like myself may not be within your budget, and I really wanted to make sure you're aware that I have many free and extremely low-cost resources and services available that can make such a difference in how you feel and perform in your everyday and athletic life. I currently have 7 free nutrition downloads that you can grab on my website, eatforendurance.com, under resources. My blog has lots of very detailed posts on a variety of everyday nutrition and performance nutrition topics that are definitely worth exploring. And if you want direct access to me, but you don't have hundreds of dollars to spend, I have a new nutrition membership called Fuel for Life Crew. That's just $30 a month. And you're going to get to join a small but growing community of busy, active people just like you on our private Slack channel, and also get direct access to me to answer all of your nutrition questions. You also get my paid nutrition resources included, plus live monthly calls on different topics that you help choose. So a really great deal. You don't have to commit to anything. You can do 1 month and quit if it's not for you. Give it a try. We're having so much fun in that group. And of course, I also work one-to-one with nutrition clients if you need personalized support. So if you have an event you're training for or other nutrition and health goals that you want to work on, just head on over to eatforendurance.com and schedule a free discovery call on my services page. I would love to work with you. And if you're curious what my past clients have to say, go on over to my testimonial page and you can read all about it. All right, let's get back to the episode. Let's talk about FKTs now and fueling. So obviously your most recent example, which we can use as the example, is AT, which was like over 40 days. And that obviously you're really pushing yourself. And what I think is so incredible about this is I heard you talking about like really letting go and letting your crew basically fully take over fueling, which is so fascinating in the sense of like, when you think about like, I don't know, whenever I'm working with clients or I'm talking with people, and it's always about like what they're in the mood for, what they tolerate. And it's like a lot of it, it's coming from the person, right? And in this case, you're like, I'm being hand fed and my crew's just like basically telling me what and how much and when to eat. And I'd love for you just to elaborate on that a bit and talk about the types of foods and products, strategies, how much, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, one day I would love to like connect, if you're down for it, I would love to connect one of my crew members, Amy, with you. And she did all of that. I mean, she was there from, her and her husband were there from pretty much the end of the whites to like the end, except for like, I think like a week in there. So they were with us for like 4 or 5 weeks. And she was incredible. I mean, she was counting all of my macros. She was exceptional. So I don't really know what I was doing or eating. Again, I let them take over. But some considerations I gave my crew before we started was I would love to get a protein drink. So I use Ultragen, a protein drink at every stop and at night. So I was drinking about 6 to 7 protein drinks a day. And then also telling them like 300 or 500 calories in the morning for breakfast. I think that's what I told them. 300 calories an hour, and then 1,500 at night calories wise. And that was really pretty much the only guidance I gave them. But like, I would love to hear a conversation with somebody talking to Amy like you, just knowing
I will totally
what
do that.
to ask.
That'd be great.
Yeah, knowing what to ask. And like she made, it was incredible good food. It was like really filling. And I was never dreaming of like a burger or like, you know, you're on hikes or you're on runs. You're like, oh, I could really go for like a McDonald's McDouble or whatever. I was never thinking that because I was like loving the food she was giving me. I was eating really well. I was never really hungry, but she was very intentional with the foods she was giving me. And it was all whole foods. We weren't like doing any, like opposed to the protein shakes. Everything was like, oh, that's like cottage cheese with, you know, a little orange in it. Or that's, you know, a burrito, a breakfast burrito, egg burrito with like really good like ham in there.
Oh, wow.
And that's another thing. I didn't limit myself because I told you I'm not big into red meat. But I was like, a couple months before I started the FKT, I was starting to eat red meat and like just anything. The only thing I can't eat is peanuts. I'm allergic. So other than that, we were just, you know, anything. I was eating whatever she was giving me.
So like, was stomach ever a concern? Like, did you ever have issues tolerating what they were feeding you? Or like, would they ever like be hand feeding you something or trying to give you something, you're just like, oh, I can't eat this, like, or, you know, because sometimes food just isn't appealing, or certain things, certain smells, taste, like, did any struggles there, or you really were just like into all the stuff?
I was pretty into everything. My pacers would be on like a watch, like tracking how often I eat. And I would drink these protein shakes and they would fill me up for a good hour. So I'd be like, okay, I'm good for an hour. I can't possibly eat anything else right now. So that was pretty much the only time I was like, I can't do this right now. Let's just wait an hour. And I was very honest with them. Like they would try to hand me food. I'd be like, okay, I need another 10 minutes. I feel like things aren't digesting. So it was like, it just depended how I was feeling.
But I mean, and especially with the anxiety background, I think that's so amazing that you were able just to completely just be like, okay, you're just gonna, here are the parameters, very loose parameters. You're just going to hand me the stuff.
Well, like I rely a lot on my people. I rely a lot on the professionals or just people who know more than me. Cause I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to nutrition, and I'm aware of that. So anything that anyone else does is probably better than what I'll do or what I'll recommend. So whatever it is, it's probably going to be better than what I do. Like on the Mountains of Sea Trail, I attempted to help out in that regard. I was struggling a lot. I withered away. That was a big wake up call, how important nutrition is. And that was in 2020. That was 30 days. And that was probably the hardest thing I've ever done because it was such a struggle to find. Like I didn't have as many crew members then. So that was another consideration. And they're kind of like, they were redlining as well, trying to get to different crew spots and feed me and, wear all these hats. Luckily on the Appalachian Trail, we had like Amy focusing on food. We had Rascal focusing on distances. My mom was focusing on like getting me prepared in the start of the day and the end of the day. Like everyone kind of had their own job, but the Mountains of Sea Trail, that woke me up to how important nutrition is and not ever wanting to go back to that point in my life again.
So what I'm hearing is, or I assume on the AT, like, were you able to kind of maintain, I mean, maybe you weren't weighing yourself or anything, but did you have a sense that you didn't like lose too much weight, or that you were really able to like maintain what you needed through? I mean, it's so hard, obviously, when you're expending that level of energy for so long, but it seemed like you were well fueled.
Yeah, I wish I weighed myself before and after, but like the month in between Hard Rock and the Appalachian Trail, I started eating a lot of ice cream to put on weight. And then after the attempt, I looked ripped. I'm just going to say, I looked ripped. Like, wow. I'll never look like this again because I can't. This is a body that's fueled on somebody like feeding me, and a body fueled on 50 miles a day. So like, there's no way I'm ever gonna look like this again. But it was kind of cool. I looked great. I looked so healthy.
Not like emaciated.
Compared to the Mountains of Sea Trail, I was pale. My gums, my lips were pale. I was iron deficient, super iron deficient. My body looked sickly. So compared to that, I was like, wow, this is incredible.
Talk to me about your iron deficiency. So something that you measured and you were treating, is that still something that you struggle with or under control?
Never measured. I have got my blood work done about twice. My coach, Megan Roach, she will analyze those levels for me and let me know how I'm doing in that regard. So that's great. And that's, again, where I rely on professionals. I'm not an expert in anything, really. We don't do it as often as maybe we should, but the way at least I realized that I was iron deficient was on the Mountains of Sea Trail. My sister-in-law, we got on like a couple calls, FaceTime calls as I was like on a road. So I was able to just like FaceTime them and tell them what's up. And my sister-in-law was like, she's into nutrition. She's into sports. She's not a nutritionist, but she instantly saw like my lips and my gums were white. And she's like, you have severe iron deficiency. Like, this is not okay. And once I started taking an iron supplement out there on the trail and eating more iron, like we just started packing my diet with iron, I started feeling a little better. Got
it. So just wrapping up the FKT discussion, so you were saying you were taking about 300 calories an hour. Were you using sports nutrition products? Like you said Whole Foods for the other part, but while you were actually running, were you doing like any sports drinks, gels, or any of that kind of stuff?
No.
Oh, interesting. Wow, really? Okay. What were you doing for like sodium and your carbs and all that kind of stuff?
No drink mixes at all. The third day, we realized the nutrition I was using, the liquid calories had way too much magnesium. And you can only imagine why we realized that. I kept stopping every 2 minutes to use the bathroom. It was real bad.
Okay.
So, and we tried a lot of different ones. Then we tried, Tailwind, and then we tried, it starts with an I. We tried a lot of different types. Yeah. We were, going through the gamut and nothing was working. So we just realized, okay, water and salt sticks. Yep. Those worked great. I took so many salt sticks the entire trail. That's what I used for that sodium and everything else. I mean, there was just like snacks to fill me up. So like my favorite were Welch's gummies. I had like a lot of Rice Krispie treats. They would give me like beef jerky sticks and just like a lot of snacky snack things. But then, with Amy's advisement, and then she would like make me like these wraps, these really calorie dense wraps and very diverse options. So yeah, it was a lot of Whole Foods. I did not do any gels or really any typical traditional sport nutrition products.
Yeah. And I love this. This is why I started this show, because like, I love showcasing how people fuel themselves so incredibly differently across all these different things that they're doing. And that's such a great example, right? So you don't necessarily have to have a sports drink or gels or whatever. Everyone just does it the way that works for them and look at
Yeah.
what you accomplished. So that's so cool. All right. So let's move on to ultra running, racing these events like Black Canyon, like you just did. I know that you have been working with dietitian Vic Johnson, who's actually coming on the show soon. So I'm really looking
so
forward to
great.
chatting with him. Yeah, he seems awesome.
Yeah.
I'm newer to him, and part of the reason why I started this, other than talking to athletes, is just as a virtual sports dietitian, it's just an awesome way to like connect with other colleagues and other people out there. So I'm really looking forward to that chat. But I know you've been working with him and to really up your fueling game, especially as it relates to racing, and it paid off big time. You did so amazing at Black Canyon. So yeah, I'm curious what your fueling strategy has been for ultra running. I know that it's changed. But I mean, obviously you've done great in recent years, and you won like Run Rabbit and all. You've podiumed on these other events. But I also heard you speaking about like throwing up, and now that's not a problem anymore. So yeah, just kind of hearing a little bit about your fueling strategy in ultra running, how that's evolved, and specifically at Black Canyon, what was different this time?
Yeah, I guess I'll go into the evolution.
Talking's hard.
It is hard.
I tell you.
Because I think I appreciate a lot of different perspectives from the sport. But as a beginner coming into the sport, it's a little overwhelming to see these pro athletes and understand and connect with their approaches. And I find myself like coming from a different place where I was coming from like a thru-hiker diet and the diet from the Mountains of Sea Trail, which we all know didn't work out. But I didn't really have anything. All I had as a framework was 300 calories an hour. That was it. So I was like, wherever I get that, that's fine. I just used water, and I would use, I remember my first couple 100 milers, I would eat like Cheez-Its and Gushers, a lot of snacky snack. Yeah,
I forgot about Gushers. Classic childhood snack.
Yeah, and I remember for Umstead 100, I tried something different. I tried the gels, threw up instantly. Gels. I also didn't train with gels. I just was like, I'm going to use them in this race.
You won the Umstead 100 though, didn't you?
That was
or a different
last year. The first year it didn't. And,
did not win. Okay. I was like,
no, I got third. I was passing the last 5 miles by Lindsay Dwyer, and that's the year Devin Yanko won overall.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So silly. I'm so silly, not Devin. But yeah, so Devin did great, obviously. But from there, it was like, okay, I need to start using actual sport nutrition. I started using Tailwind a little bit, and I started buying some gels. But honestly, back then, I wasn't, up until this last year, like I wasn't making any money. It was very tough to buy nutrition, buy those products, buy freaking Spring Energy. Was it $4 a gel? And I can't buy a lot of them. I can only buy for the race. Yeah. So I was very minimally training with these foods and just getting what I can and fueling with these, sport nutrition foods like the Spring Energy and whatever else I was using at that time, but it's primarily Spring Energy.
Oof, maybe that's why you're throwing up.
Yeah, probably.
R.I.P. Spring Energy. Actually, no. F.U. Spring Energy. Anyways.
Yeah, well, now it's just a little more accurate. Thank goodness. Like, this, we should have done this the entire time. And then, I just this past, like only 2 races that I've done this with. Well, I will say before, when I was racing, it was just getting pretty much just a prescribed amount of gels and whatever I could afford. And it was like 300 calories an hour, whatever I could do. I wasn't thinking about carbs pretty much until April of last year. When I did Umstead, that was the first time I looked at my carbs and was like, deciphering like how much I needed from that. That was the first time, and it went okay. It went all right, but there's a big difference from like Black Canyon and this 50K I did Mel Williams in Virginia Beach, where I was working with Vic, and he gave me very clear directions. Like, we're going to fuel with the carbs that you're going to use. We are going to use sport nutrition. You're just going to load your body when you're training as much as you can get in. And we're also we're going to figure out your sweat rate. We're going to figure out like all of these things. And I didn't throw up in Mel Williams and I didn't throw up at Black Canyon. First time ever, pretty much. I've just grown accustomed to throwing up at every single race at least once. That's normal. So I didn't throw up. I felt fueled, really well fueled the entire time. And I closed really well. I didn't just struggle to the end. And it was also, the big difference is that I was able to eat throughout. It's not like there wasn't a lot of palate fatigue. I was able to fuel my body throughout and not feel sick and not feel overwhelmed. And it's such a game changer. The nutrition is such a game changer. Like, I PR'd by almost an hour on the Black Canyon course. I think 9:19 was my time last year, and this year was 9:25. So pretty much an hour. And I think there's a lot there has to do with that PR, but I think a lot of it's just nutrition. And also, he has kind of educated a lot of athletes on this, but the hydration levels, like, we're not hydrating enough either. And so it's easier to consume these calories, especially liquid calories. So the
evolution.
Goodness gracious. I don't know why that word's not working for me today, but going from gushers to, eating like actual foods and liquid calories. I mean, there's such a difference in how I race because of that.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of those principles, like train with what you plan to use on race day and like, figuring out sweat rate and all this stuff. It's like, I mean, not to say these are like basic principles, but, I always take for granted that these are kind of standard things that we all sports dietitians will work on with clients, with athletes, or just like educating on. But so many people don't know this. And every time I work with someone, I mean, yeah, a ton of people. It's not uncommon to talk with someone and they're like, oh, well, I don't need so many gels or I don't need so many grams of carbs during a training run, right? It's just a training run. It's like, dude, we're trying to train your gut. We're trying to do all this stuff. And then, when you're taking gels that cost $4 a pop, I mean, it's just brutal for these long runs. So, I have so much like, I just know that person I was back then, just trying to make anything work. Yeah.
Getting free race entries, like sleeping in my car, or trailheads, like doing whatever I can to make it work, and just knowing like we can't all afford these products, and just thinking like there's athletes out there, ultramarathon athletes, that can be the best of the best, incredible, but they can't afford the right products. They don't have the same opportunities. And that is so unfortunate because I do believe there's so many athletes out there. It's just like that barrier of cost. It costs so much to buy food for your training runs.
Especially now.
Yeah, especially now. And it's just hard to make a name for yourself when you're just doing it on a budget. I mean, it didn't take me that long, like comparatively to a lot of people, but it was frustrating when I wasn't able to like afford those foods. And I knew I should have been training with them a long time ago.
And a lot of it too is just, I mean, thankfully with the internet, with podcasts, like there's just so many free resources available. So like I have blog posts about all the basics of sports nutrition, as do many other people. There, my podcast and other podcasts out there go over tons of things about whether it's hydration or training with carbs or whatever, right? So there's a lot of things you can listen to for free and kind of educate yourself on this stuff. And there are products like Carbs Fuel come to mind. That's like $2.
Love Carbs Fuel.
Yeah, it's so cheap.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. So it's like so cheap. So thankfully there's this host of like all these products out there that you can play with. You can do homemade things. There are lots of ways around that cost barrier. It's just kind of knowing those things and not just assuming, oh, well, I have to buy Morton or whatever it is, right? It's like, well, no, you don't. Like, let's go over some more budget-friendly options. So I think it's just getting a little creative and finding your way around. Like, yes, working with a dietitian is amazing, and that's great if you can afford that and have the opportunity. But there are many more affordable ways to get that information or for free. So, so like for Black Canyons, like what are your kind of go-tos right now other than Carbs Fuel? Are there any, like what products did you like specifically use in that race?
Yeah, I did for the first 50K, I did only liquid calories, SIS beta fuel. And we made a plan for aid station to aid station, like what I need to be doing at each aid station. There's like things that I wouldn't even think of. Like he was like, have a powder flask and then fill it up with water at the aid station. So you still have your SIS beta fuel, but you're not carrying like all of that weight. So for the first 50K, I was doing beta fuel, and that was we estimated about 70 to 80 carbs an hour. And at first, the beginning of the race, when it's a little cooler, we did 500 milliliters of liquids, trying to get that down, and then upped it when it got a little warmer, I think after Bumblebee, to 750. And then
Do you mean an hour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then got to Deep Canyon, and that's where I would start gels. So what I did there was only did waters from there on, and also used Precision Fuel, their salt, like I think it's 250 tabs.
Yeah.
Use those. I use that every 30 minutes. And then whenever I took a salt tab, oh no, that was caffeine. Sorry. So that was every 30 minutes, but then every 30 minutes I took a gel in. So it was carbs fuel. So that was 50. And then another 30 minutes I would take a First Endurance Wild Berry liquid shot. And that's around 30 grams of carbs. So that got me out to a really good, they're really easy for me to eat too. I don't know. Carbs fuel is so good. I like it a lot. It's very easy to get down.
Yeah. It's not too thick.
Yeah. And then I would do a caffeine pill every hour. So on the hour, I would take a carbs fuel gel, caffeine pill, and then there was like the salt tab, and then like drink a bunch of water. And then when I took my liquid shot, there wasn't any extra stuff I was taking with that. So no
food, just kind of products this time.
Yep. It was, and worked really well. Oh, Coke.
Oh yeah, and Coke. And what was the reasoning behind doing liquid nutrition, and then gels later? Was there any kind of strategy behind that?
Yeah, I think I tend to get in conversation with people, and then I lose track of time in the beginning of races, especially. So it's just easier to drink rather than and get that calorie, because I'm going to get thirsty. My body's going to tell me you need a drink. So easier at that point. So I just kind of like getting into a race is a little disorienting for me, and I kind of lose track of a lot of things. So doing the liquids in the beginning seemed like the best method. And then he asked me like, where do you think you could eat? What do you think you could consume later in a race? Because that's pretty important. And I felt like gels was the way to go there.
Got it.
Yeah.
So cool. So it's, just kind of stepping back, and we've talked about thru-hiking, we've talked about FKT, and now here, and it's really interesting just how different it all looks. Gels didn't play a role in any of the hiking speed records, and now gels are in sports drink. That's the feature. So
yeah.
I'd be so curious, and you don't need to answer this, but like, if you end up doing like another FKT or, some sort of more thru-hiking type thing, if now that you have these other fueling strategies, tools, products, like if they're going to start to make their way back into other parts, or if these are all going to be separate. Do you think they're going to all stay in their like little buckets?
I think they're going to stay in their buckets, because during a race, it's like hard to eat. And so like those those sources of fuel are like easy to consume. But during like FKTs, you're generally going pretty slow. So your body's able to like absorb and process these like complex foods a little better than like the easy gel. So I feel comfortable especially in the Appalachian Trail, it worked so well. I think I'll just stick with that for future attempts.
All right. Another question. Candy Mama. Where did that come from? Your trail name.
Yes.
It seems obvious. You love candy, I guess. But yeah, where did that come from specifically?
Yeah, it was because I love candy. And I mommed everyone in my trail family. I was big mom energy. Now I'm not so much like that anymore. It was a place of anxiety. That's where it was coming from. Making sure everyone was okay. Now I'm like, I don't care. If you're not eating, then that's on you. Obviously, my mother's different. But like other people's like, yeah, that's on you, man. But like candy was a big part of my thru hike, and fueled a lot on candy, and would eat Airheads like before I went to bed, didn't brush my teeth, and then cavities would form. And by the end of the thru hike, I went to a dentist, and I had 6 cavities that had formed. So the dentist told me, he was like, you need to eat chocolate if you're going to do candy, you need to do chocolate because like the airheads just get stuck in your teeth and they don't melt like chocolate would.
Okay. Yeah. So what's your current favorite candy?
I can just eat a whole bag of M&Ms, just eating them. And I'm not talking like the bag that you get at a grocery store at the checkout. I'm talking the family size. You go into the aisle and the bag that zips up. And you're going to zip this up. You're not going to eat it. You're going to go in and out. I eat the whole thing. I don't even need the zip. Just leave it open for me because I'm going to eat the entire thing of M&Ms. So pretty much, M&Ms are good. I like when they're a little melted too.
Yum.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, let's chat about recovery. I know we're coming up on time, so I'll try not to keep you too much longer. Yeah, what are some nutrition strategies that you've leaned on to recover quickly? Because, of course, you had Hard Rock, then you pretty much went right into your AT attempt, and then not long after, here you are at Black Canyons with a very hard, fast time. So, yeah, share your recovery strategies, especially with nutrition.
Lucky Charms.
Lucky Charms. Okay.
Ice cream.
And ice cream. So just getting the calories in.
Yeah. I don't like limit myself, especially after the FKT. I was like, I say this a lot, but I ignored a lot of signals from my body that was telling me like, you need to stop. Like, we're not feeling okay. You need to stop whatever you're doing. Like oftentimes those are just signals and it's not like, obviously your body wants you to stop and preserve your body. So those are sometimes very false signals, but I was avoiding listening to those. And then after the trial, I listened to my body. Whatever I thought of that I wanted to eat, it was whatever. I mean, my body did so much for me during the FKT, especially that I just need to fuel it and listen to it and care for it until the next attempt.
Did you crave anything in particular, or were you trying to pay attention to any particular nutrients, or it really was just like anything goes, just eat all the things, relax on the couch, do lots of podcasts?
Yeah. It was, I mean, just thinking back to, I was in Virginia Beach for a short amount of time before I went to Ward, Colorado to watch a friend's cat while they're on the Ice Age Trail. But like in that time, I just kind of like really would just eat whatever. And I still kind of do that. I pay a little more attention to my ice cream consumption because oftentimes if I eat a lot of it, it doesn't really make me feel great. But back then I was just like really fueling with whatever sounded good.
How long did it take you to feel a little bit back to baseline after the AT?
Yeah. Oh, I had like the last full day of the attempt, I had a glute injury. So like if I'm not counting that, to come back to where I was like running and feeling okay. What was that? It was probably like 3.5 weeks.
Okay. That's actually pretty fast, I think.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna look this up because I get this question so often. And I actually have like a picture where I'm going on this run in Boulder and I'm like, wow, I was running quick. I was feeling so good. And I have this picture. I would love to know what, oh, here it is. Okay. October 20th, 2024. So
wait, that was fast. You finished like late September, right? Or mid-September?
Yep. September 21st. So a full month, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's a month. Okay, but that's still pretty good. That's pretty fast.
look how happy I am. I'm just like,
oh my God. Yeah, look at you.
I'm
my goodness.
I'm stoked.
Love it. Very, very cool. Do you feel like you have, I mean, when we're thinking about both everyday and performance nutrition, I know we didn't focus as much on that. Well, we kind of touched on everyday here and there, but do you feel like you have everything pretty dialed in right now? Or just thinking about Western states, since you do have that golden ticket, are there certain things you're really trying to dial in this training cycle as you lead up? Or do you feel pretty good about it?
I'm going to continue with like eating as many carbs as I can during runs, getting my body to receive those efficiently. But other than that, like everyday fueling, I just focus on like having pretty much a protein, any sort of protein, and just like some sort of vegetable during the day. Other than that, I'm not. Me and Vic are meeting because we started working together, and quickly after we started working together was Black Canyon, maybe like a month and a half. So we had to like accelerate and go past, his everyday nutrition talk and then go straight to sports nutrition. So I'm sure like once I start tracking what I eat every day, he might have something to say about it. And that's exciting because that's just going to increase my performance even more. And just knowing there's like that untapped potential there if like I can use food, everyday nutrition as like, I guess you could say like an inhibitor in my performance.
Yeah, I mean, what I always say is like your everyday nutrition really is like the foundation for your performance nutrition plan.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you have like your sports stuff dialed, like it's going to all crumble or you're not going to do your best, let's say, if you don't have everything else in there where it needs to be. You literally just launched your own podcast, DNF Diaries, I saw, which is super cool. What made you want to start your own show and what's it about?
Yeah, me and my friend Arlie, we wanted to do a podcast, but we didn't want to follow the same script. I did so many podcasts in October and November after the AT, and they were great and the hosts were very dedicated and I appreciate all of them, but I just saw this like common thread throughout.
Yeah.
It was just like an interview style.
Yep.
And there got to a point where I was like, well, like, I don't think there's a lot more to say at this point in podcasts. Like, I don't think there's a lot of unique questions coming out. I think, there's everything that's need to be said has been said. And it just didn't feel like if I did want to do a podcast, I didn't want it to follow that same script. And we were thinking like for the longest time what it could be. I was always going to have a comedic twist to it because Arlie is a budding comedian. They say counselor by day and night, runner by night, and comedian all the time. So like whatever it was, we were going to have like a comedic twist. And then have you ever listened to Normal Gossip?
Yes.
So we wanted to follow that
so good
inspiration.
I love that.
And use it, but tell DNF stories. So we would have people send in DNF stories to us and we tell the story to each other. And it flips.
That's so fun.
Week. Yeah.
I love that.
It's a good time that me and Arlie can spend together. I think that's what I enjoy the most out of it because we spend every other week talking about these stories. So that's fun. But it's cool to like have another outlet. I'm a very creative person and it's just another creative outlet for me.
Yeah. And kind of circling back to the whole anxiety piece and other ways to kind of help cope. Like for me, I also have my creative outlets more in like arts and crafts style thing and sea glass hunting on the beach and whatever it is, and they're things that make you be really present and they just kind of get other parts of you flowing, which is really, really, really nice. So, which I always encourage everyone to explore and kind of find these types of things for themselves. So they're not just like always doing the exercise piece or always doing whatever it is, that you just have all these different things that you can explore and that really make you feel like you. Yeah. So I really like that a lot. All right. 2 seconds. We're going to do quick bites questions and I'm going to get you out here. I promise. What is your favorite post-race meal or snack?
Beer and Chick-fil-A. I'm big fan of Chick-fil-A.
What has been your worst race nutrition experience?
Using goos during Homestead the first year and throwing up everything.
What has been the most exotic or interesting food that you've ever tried?
Well, I don't know. The only thing that's on my mind right now, because I just had it last night, is the Himalayan dishes that we had. We got a large assortment of Himalayan food last night and it was so good.
Nice. How do you like your eggs cooked?
Over hard.
I don't think I've ever had anyone say that. Over hard. That sounds so funny. So it's just like fully cooked yolk. Got it. Okay.
Yep. Everything's cooked.
Everything is super cooked to the max. Okay. Got it. What is your favorite beverage? Alcoholic or non-alcoholic or both?
I like water with some element in it.
What are your comfort foods?
Ice cream, cake, pastries. Flaky pastry for sure.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
There is one, I forget, Tillamook. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I know what your brand you're talking about.
But it's like their mudslide, I think it's called. It's just got like ripples of chocolate in it.
So good. And last question, top 3 items of gear that are most essential to your active lifestyle.
I would say like headphones for sure. I know some people have like strong opinions about them, but I just enjoy getting into my music and getting into a groove when I'm running. I would also say my watch. Watch is great. It's very smart. And I love my shoes. I exclusively use Ultra shoes and have only used one other pair of shoes and it didn't go well. So I really like Ultras.
Awesome. Well, Tara, this has been so much fun. Thank you for hanging out with me and making time for me today. Where can everyone find you online if they want to follow along all your adventures?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Tara, Tara Dower, Dower. And then you can follow my podcast, DNF Diaries, on everything that you can follow podcasts on.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to listening to that. I haven't, because you've put out a few episodes so far, right?
3. We have 3
Nice.
out. I released it yesterday and just put out all the stuff we have.
Love it. Well, I can't wait to dig into that.
Yeah,
well,
great.
Thank you so much, and good luck with the lead up to Western. Can't wait to see how you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That is our show for today. Before you go, I have a huge favor to ask. If you enjoyed this interview with Tara Dower and you're enjoying this podcast generally, would you be willing to share it with a friend, share it on social media? I would also appreciate it if you're able to give me a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen, and also be sure to hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I also have some affiliate codes that you can use to help support my free content. One of them is Eat for Endurance 20 over at Scratch Labs if you're a first-time customer. I have other codes on the shop page of my website, eatforendurance.com, that you can check out. I also have a Patreon page that I have linked to in my show notes if you want to join our community and get some of the awesome perks over there. And as always, please get in touch with any feedback, topic requests, or just to say hi. I would love to hear from you. All right, thanks so much. See you all next time.